This show is part of the RetroZap.com podcast network.
Now, prepare yourselves for a Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels Special Edition.
Hello, Scoundrels and Star Wars fans, and welcome to this Scoundrels Special Edition. I'm Dennis Keithly, and with me are my friends and co-hosts Jay Krebs and Darth Taxus. Guys, how you two doing this evening?
Hey, doing really well. We got some bite to this episode, so ready to
I see
get
what
to
you did
it.
there.
Haha.
I don't see what she did there.
Oh, I get it now. Okay, sorry. I was
Sorry, it
thinking,
must be all the cold meds. You know, you're still a little foggy.
Yeah. Brink of death is really the term I like to think of. Bravery, courage. There were a couple of GoFundMes out there for me. They're still active. I still have a lot of debts. So guys, go kick that in. Just Google "give money to Taxus" and see what comes up.
All right, well, Scoundrels, now we got that out of the way. Welcome to our special edition. These are bonus episodes of Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels that don't include our news and other segments. Instead, we focus directly on a specific piece of content, an experience, or something else going on in Star Wars. Tonight, we are discussing the latest episode of Resistance, Dangerous Business. This is a full spoiler discussion, so Taxus, hit that spoiler, and Scoundrels, if you are still here, you've been warned. So we begin on the Colossus Station with Yeager, Tam, and Niku. They arrive in Yeager's garage and are set to make repairs to the Fireball. They're surprised to learn that Kaz completed the repairs already. Kaz got the parts from Flix and Orca and is going to be paying them back by working in their shop while they are away. So right off the bat, I kind of liked the direction that this episode starts with, and that Kaz is taking some initiative, he's doing some team building, and he's actually progressed enough as a mechanic that, except for installing one part backwards, he did a good job getting the Fireball up and running.
Well, we hope so anyways. They hadn't actually inspected it at that point. I know, I was really surprised too. I thought, oh, wow, Kaz, look at you go, man, doing stuff.
Yeah, Niku awesome. Actually complimented him on the work, so.
Yeah, I had one question. Like, wasn't the Fireball up and running like last episode or 2 episodes ago or something?
Yeah, it was up in the previous episode when they were fighting the Rachna, the sea monster, and then they had used it before then when Kaz rendezvoused with Poe to go investigate what was going on with the First Order. The problem is it just keeps breaking down, there, it's in constant need of repairs and new parts, and I wouldn't be terribly surprised if this episode was intended to become before the prior episode, and then they just changed the order around a little bit. But,
Oh, interesting thought. Yeah,
because they did that. I know they did that on Rebels on several occasions. But
Okay.
So, anyways, Tam is touched by the effort, and then Kaz sets off to head over to Acquisitions to take care of things for Flix and Orca. When he gets there, they instruct him to look after their pet Gorg, Bitey. It's the pun from Jay.
They're not very inventive with pet names there, are they?
Yeah.
Well, they went with its most notable attribute. But
right.
They also make sure to tell Kaz that no matter what happens, always take the customer's money and don't go into the back room or sell anything from there. One of the things about the prior episode that just kind of bothered me is that I didn't feel like the framework of that episode was great for making it feel like one coherent story. I mean, it was, you can see it there, but this one has got much more right off the bat, the elements that you would expect to see a story. It's like, here's the situation, here are the rules, and so you can kind of follow that. Okay, we know that something's going to come up with something in the back room. It's kind of like with Gremlins: don't feed them after midnight,
right?
Don't get them wet. Don't sell anything out of the back room, and make sure you get the customer money. But it's been a little while since we had Flix and Orca. What did you all think of their appearance here?
I actually really liked them in this one. They weren't characters that necessarily really appealed to me the first couple times around. But this time they just kind of had an odd couple vibe to them. And they had a good chemistry, and it was hilarious when he was talking about going to visit Flick's mother. And that was the whole reason for their trip, and just kind of acted like, oh boy, here we go. We got to do this. Yeah. But they were pretty endearing in this one. I did actually really enjoy them.
Yeah, they were fun. I was wondering, okay, so does Flick's mom live like on the other side of the station, or they're just going for a day, or is it like the next system over? I mean, again, I have no idea how fast things move, in hyperspace stuff. But I don't know. Did you get kind of the feeling it's like has Kaz received any training on point of sale systems and inventory management control, or how do you apply sales tax? I mean, it seems kind of like, here, kid. Here's the keys to the shop. Good luck.
Well, you can chalk that up to the fact that he received no training on how to be a spy or mechanic either, and there he is doing both those jobs too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and as far as your travel comment, Taxus, I mean, I think with Star Wars, everything moves at the speed of plot. It takes however long it needs to take to get anywhere.
That joke made me plots.
Yeah, well, they've never been terribly consistent about establishing any standard time to get anywhere. But so Flix and Orca are off, and Kaz and Bitey and BB-8 are manning the store. A couple of customers arrive. Eventually, a character named Taraj Key shows up and wants a phase connector. There's only one in the shop, and it's already been sold. So Kaz tells him, you can't have it. But Taraj, in what is an obvious bit of subterfuge, orders a small amount of parts and demands that Kaz deliver them to Dock 23. So, a couple things. Taraj Key, if you looked at the episode guide on StarWars.com, he's a Katerian, and this was a species introduced in The Last Jedi. It was the one of the managers in the casino on Canto Bight. Okay. So if it looks familiar, that's where you've seen it before. And again, I liked the development of Kaz here. He, as the parts are getting gathered up, he balks at this order that Taraj gives him to deliver the parts. And then when he finally acquiesces, he leans over and tells BB-8, he's like, yeah, I know he's up to something. So you stay here, guard the shop, and I'm going to go see what's going on. Yeah. So he's not quite as naive as he was over the course of the season. He's been demonstrating some growth.
Yeah, except for walking into a giant empty bin, getting trapped in it. You know what I mean?
Well, small steps.
Other than that, I guess baby steps. Right.
I mean, in the past, he wouldn't have seen that come. He wouldn't have seen the betrayal coming at all. Yeah, and just wandering it blindly. And what?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would have just thought, though, that he would have just closed up the shop for the delivery rather than leaving BB-8 to mine the shop. But that was the only thing that really kind of bugged me about that particular setup. But other than that, it was.
I thought he was getting abducted, somebody, like it was a pirate abduction or something. They fingered him as being a spy, and that's the reason why he was being tricked into that. You know what I mean?
That's a possibility. Yeah, I can see that.
I didn't even think about it. I thought the part was just a ruse. Did I say that weird? Ruse. Oh, well. It was a ruse.
Right. Well, so once Kaz gets to Docking Bay 23, as you were mentioning, Taxus, Taraj basically tells him to put the parts in a crate, and then he locks them in there. Taraj then returns to the shop and is confronted by BB-8. Despite his best efforts to fend off the invader, BB-8 gets pinned under some fallen shelves. Yeah. Okay, so this was a bit more the action, maybe a little bit more the slapstick thing, but I did kind of feel like what we got with BB-8 was kind of what we come to expect. The little arc welder comes out and he, tosses things kind of in the same style that Chopper would have done in Rebels. But what did you all think of those scenes?
Yeah, that, again, you just said it. It's classic BB-8 for sure. So I liked the Rhodian dude that was working on the dock. He was jamming out to his music and he was just doing his thing.
Yeah, more Star Wars rock. Right.
I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, I thought that little fight, this whole episode felt a little more on the kiddie side. You know, I know, Dennis, you'd mentioned in the previous episode that there's some more adult enjoyment in the future or something, but this still felt kind of like, you know, okay, let's throw in the little kid laughs, which is cool, you know what I mean, because there were always that in Star Wars. But the thing that kind of made me giggle was when BB-8 did that quick pop to the face, you know, with his magnet thing, you know what I mean? It was like a little jab or something, you know. I thought that was kind of clever. I never really thought of him using those things as a weapon before, you know, but yeah, I thought that was fun. You know, trash. Of course, it's setting up potentially more plot by trashing the entire shop, you know, during the whole experience. But anyways, and Kaz is, of course, trying to figure out how not to drown in a giant empty steel box, because they're about to drop that in the ocean.
Right. We'll get to that in just a second.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. I think, you know, to your comment though about the action and aimed at kids, to me this episode was a lot. It had charm to it, I think, that was missing in the last episode, the Bibo episode. And I didn't catch who wrote this one, who wrote the last one, but this one I felt like, and we've got a couple plot elements that I'll elaborate on this, but this one I kind of think pushed the story forward a bit more. I think it did so in an episode that you know, it contains a twist in it, and the humor, you know, there was, you know, Bitey keeps biting people's fingers. You know, that's one of the things that they keep warning people about. It's like, you know, watch your fingers. You think they're, you know, they're food, and that'll play a large role in this. But to me, at least, a lot of the humor ends up being a little bit more in line with what I expect from Star Wars, as opposed to kind of the over-the-top Niku tantrums and cluelessness and things like that. And so anyway, I don't know if you all felt the same way or differed on that point, but at least the tone for me on this episode was a little bit more ideal.
I would echo that. I would. You're right when you said that the humor was a little bit more charming, a little bit more endearing, as opposed to the "I would love him and call him George" kind of thing. That really bugged me last episode. It really did. But yeah, all the humor I think was pointing to, you know, kind of a means to an end in this one as well. And of course, you know, calling Bitey I guess is no different than calling a dog Spot. You know,
that's the way my mom named animals. You know? She would always name them by like what she saw them doing, you know,
or Brownie,
Stop It Scratchy, or like their primary coat color. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You know, come here, Mangy. Well, I guess my whole thing was the last episode was so over the top. You know, it really didn't have significant consequence or, you know, dire straits, despite the giant Kraken-esque thing, because we all knew what was coming, right? You know, and I guess I just kind of was expecting this to be a little more potentially serious, like on the flip side of that, you know what I mean? Because that was a little more slapsticky. So I guess that's what I meant. I just felt like it was kind of a 1-2 combination where it was like, you know, lighthearted episode. You know what I mean? Kind of in a row.
Yeah. Right. I if this were Rebels, I think you'd be spot on with that observation.
Yeah.
It's just that they really haven't had any episodes that were serious, for lack of a better description.
Yeah.
Not I guess the more serious tone, the darker tone so far. I mean, it's this one, you know, there's been a lot of discussion, especially amongst the three of us, that, you know, at the beginning of this season, before things aired, they build this as, you know, a Star Wars show for kids. It's going to appeal to kids, and they really played up the racer aspect of it. And I can't help but wonder if perhaps that was marketing folks that maybe saw part of the first episode and saw that this was going to be they saw the racers and like, oh, the ace pilots and their racers, and they got a scoreboard. And so it's going to be about Kaz doing some spying with some racers. And, you know, and then as they got closer to the season actually starting, they changed the promotion a little bit. You know, it's great for kids of all ages.
Right.
And then, as we talked about on episode 72, the mid-season trailer came out, and the tone was completely different in that.
Oh, yeah.
It's, you know, it is the, you know, we're getting into the time of the First Order destroying Hosnium Prime. So we're approaching the events of The Force Awakens. And, I don't want to go rehash this entire conversation. We just had it, but it is the show is going to eventually get to the point where it justifies itself being called Resistance, because it's really not that right now. It's one guy who's spying for the Resistance.
Yeah.
And occasionally Poe Dameron shows up.
It's more resistant.
Exactly. Yeah. So anyways, just to address that point of yours, Taxus, that you would, if this were the Clone Wars or Rebels, I think you would have been spot on, that you would expect to see something, the tone bounce back and forth between the two poles, but it just isn't that. And maybe we'll get towards that other more serious pole as the season goes on, but I do got to wonder if, how are they really going to be, even when the First Order does show up, what the tone's going to be like. But so moving on, as you were saying, Kaz can't find any help to get out of this crate, and he knows it's being maneuvered into position to be dropped in the ocean, but he resorts to using some of the equipment that he brought with him that Taraj had ordered, and he uses a torch and a lens to magnify the beam and basically slices a way out of there. So
it's clever.
I like this. What did you all think?
Yeah, that was his MacGyver moment, taking what he had. He actually was pretty resourceful there. And I have to say, if I were a youngster watching this, that particular scene did set up some good suspense. Of course, we know that Kaz is going to make it out of there. We know he is. But, maybe to a younger youngling, they might see that as nail-biting moment. Is Kaz going to make it? Is he going to make it? And so I do. I really like that scene. I thought that was very well done.
What do you mean youngling? I thought he really did fall.
So
I was like,
well, I mean,
that was like,
well, yeah.
I was like, like I watched that thing fall. I'm like, okay, if he survives that, then my whole thing about, physics being completely out, you know what I'm saying? Because I was like, man, that's a real far drop. That's like hitting, concrete.
Yeah.
And so I didn't realize that he was trying to jump onto the thing. I guess I missed that spot, what he was trying to cut out. You know what I mean?
Well, they also kind of cheated with the camera angle on that, too. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's, well, because Taxus, for a second there, I thought, oh my, he did actually fall into the ocean. I mean, because they did the angle of him cutting his way out, and then there was the angle of the crate dropping, and then it was kind of like a pullback, and that's and then a reverse angle is when you actually saw Kaz hanging there, and so like you guys said, it was a good moment of suspense there. They did a good job with that, but for a second they fooled me. I thought that I didn't think he died. We were going to get some sort of an explanation of how he survived that or escaped or whatever. But that did throw me for a second.
I dropped my Oreo in my milk when that happened.
Well, all I could think of was, at least maybe he got it cut open enough to where maybe he was able to at least get out of the end. But then I saw him hanging there, and that was funny too. Yeah. The Rodian's like, "What are you doing? What are you doing? I'm working here." Well, I'm working up here.
Yeah, you know what?
Get back to work.
Yeah, that's the humor that I thought was more appropriate to Star Wars. And it was, I'm a little hesitant to chalk everything up to character growth, but perhaps that's what that was. It's because at the beginning of the season, when they went to Flicks and Orcas and they were looking for, I can't remember what the parts were, and Orca's like, oh yeah, we got a box full of kyber crystals and this, that, and the other. And Ked's like, wow, you guys really have that stuff? It's just kind of this naivety of his. And, I guess perhaps being outside of the Republic Navy, where he's not inside that structure and he's not with his dad, the senator, and his family, maybe this time that he spent on Colossus has caused him to mature a little bit and not be so naive, and a little bit more streetwise, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just hope that he doesn't lose so much of that innocence. You know what I mean? I don't want him to become super jaded with his experience, but yet develop, like you said. I think there's going to be a happy medium there where we're still going to be able to see Kaz's character expand, but yet stay true to himself too.
I just wonder if he's going to be, well, that's a good point, Dennis, because I didn't really think about development as a character, as far as even the jaded aspect, because right now, basically, everybody that he's met, all they're concerned about is fighting off pirates and racing. You know what I mean? Except for Doza and then Jaeger. You know what I mean? They're kind of the heavies, right? They're the ones that you can tell they kind of have grave things on their mind all the time, and they're grumpy, you know? So I just wonder, like, let's take Doza's daughter, you know? She's all happy-go-lucky, right? So I wonder if something after the Hosnian Prime thing, I wonder who's going to be changed by that character development-wise. You know what I mean? Are we going to see everybody still happy-go-lucky? Or are we going to see some people kind of staying in that state of bliss? Or, I mean, if they even stay on Colossus Station, I mean, what are we going to see? You know, is he going to surpass them in emotional development?
Yeah, we'll find out. I mean, you know, we've got, when we talked about the teaser last weekend, we have an idea of some things to come with the First Order moving into the station and grounding the ace pilots. And, you know, there's the line of, you know, Kaz saying, we're the resistance now and whatever. So I think he is going to develop into a leader on the show. I don't think he's ever actually going to surpass most of these people on a maturity level. I think he's going to maybe get to their level, but I can't see him getting past a Jaeger and Tam for that matter. He just, I don't know that he can catch up to that level of jadedness. Gotcha. But anyway, one last comment about the escape from this crate is that I did appreciate the fact that when he was slicing his way out with a blowtorch, he was not looking directly at the flame. They did take that extra step of care to have him, you know, just, it was bright. He was not looking directly. I mean, because that could seriously hurt your eyes. Yeah, and so I don't know. That just I don't know. That appealed to me. That was a
little bit of realism.
Well, yes. A little bit of realism and a little bit of caution on that case. I mean, it's that is not, you know, you should be using a welding helmet when using something like that. And then he magnified it with that lens, and it was not something very easy for him to look at. And, you know, he didn't just stare. Sure. There's the episode of Simpsons where Homer chooses a welding torch and doesn't use a mask, and his eyes are all glowing red afterwards. So that's what I was thinking of at the time.
Kids, when you play with your acetylene torch at home, don't look into the flame, okay?
Exactly. So Kaz then discovers that Teraj is working with the First Order. He's aboard their ship, and he's also got Bitey with him, the Gorg. So they avoid the stormtroopers and Teraj long enough to sabotage the ship that they're on and cause it to crash into the sea. They accomplish this by having Bitey chew into the power cords, and it basically short circuits the ship, and then they have to escape. Kaz then finds an escape pod and launches, and at first he thought that Bitey had gone down with the First Order, but then he shows up on the windshield of the escape pod. So, and then there was several moments of biting Kaz's fingers, and you know, proving his namesake. And
Bitey does what Bitey do.
Yeah. Again, this is one of those lines that in the humor department that I thought Bitey he was on that line. I don't know that he crossed it, but to me, it was close, but I think he did okay there with that. But
the part that made me kind of giggle was like when he finally just gave in and stuck his hand down to Bitey, like, come on, you know what I mean? And
he had to get him to let go.
Yeah, that was kind of funny because he just goes, okay, goes on. But
yeah, and then he was on the escape pod when he thought that Bitey had died with the ship. He's looking at his glove and all the bite marks all over it.
Kind of, little reminder.
What did he say about the resistance? Like, you gave your life. Or something really kind of
sorrowful, you gave your life for the resistance.
Solemn. That was kind of funny. So, can I ask you guys something? I mean, Kaz, the ends kind of justify the means to Kaz. I mean, I don't know. He just immediately thinks, I'm going to crash this entire ship with me on it. You know what I mean? Instead of, it's like, whoa. Do you have a escape plan or something? Or what do you, I don't know. Well, okay, sounds good to me. Go for it. You know? It just seemed like he was kind of like, oh man, what am I going to do? I'm going to crash the ship, and it's a big thing. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it was high up in the air. So anyway, I didn't, of course, they were escape pods, of course. But, you know, at the time I was thinking, he doesn't even know where their escape pods are.
Yeah. Well, he is a bit rash. There's definitely that.
His medical condition does not concern me.
But he's, you know, I commend him for taking action. I mean, he didn't know what to do, but you know, he's working for the Resistance, and so his opinion is that whatever he's got to do, to hinder the First Order will benefit the Resistance.
Sure.
So, but yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's a situation where he really had time to make any plans, which is, it's the, let's act first and find an escape later. It worked out for him this time, but you're right, it may not work out for him in the future, with that type of thinking.
Exactly. And if you've ever had a cat chew through your power cables, that's entirely possible for Biden to have done what he did.
Yeah, definitely.
Brad was a cat.
Okay, so Kaz was just mentioned he escaped an escape pod, and then Taraj and the stormtroopers find their own escape pods and get out as well. Taraj then contacts Commander Pyre and reports that his mission to get a phase conductor has failed. So Pyre's just kind of, well, that's unfortunate, but we'll find another one. Not a whole lot to report there, other than we knew that the First Order was behind this, and I don't think they really did anything other than Pyre was in charge, came out of that scene.
Yeah.
Then, back on Colossus Station, Flix and Orca have returned, and Flix is claiming that his father was part Gungan, which is
weird.
Kind of a funny moment. But Kaz reports into them that, because the shop is still a disaster, he didn't have an opportunity to clean it up, that, someone came in, they wanted a phase connector, and I told him he couldn't buy it. He bought a bunch of other stuff, then he threw him in a crate, so he goes through the whole spiel, and then turns out that Taraj had been trying to get this phase connector from them for a while and has been kind of a pain in their side, and they were happy with Kaz for, taking him down, so to speak, but he still gave him all these parts and he didn't get any money, so he's going to have to work that off, which seems a little unfair, I guess, but it is what it is. I mean, the guy came in and stole it, and sure, it was Kaz's job to protect the station, but he came with a blaster. What else was Kaz supposed to do?
Right. I mean, he's got like 5 jobs now.
Oh, yeah. Busiest guy on the station.
And they actually were pretty thankful to him, because they're like, after they described who he was to Kaz, they're like, was it this guy? Was his name Taraj Key? Did he claim to work for the mining guild? That guy's been trying to steal from us for years. So they were actually thankful that he did all that. So, have a little bit of mercy on the poor kid, I guess.
So is there only like one of these in the entire galaxy? I mean, it seems kind of weird that he would be so focused on getting this one thing, and
well, he can't go to Coruscant. I mean, the First Order is limited. I'm trying to remember the name of the treaty that was signed between the Empire and the Republic at the Battle of Jakku. But that's essentially what the First Order has come out of, and they can't tip their hand. I mean, if they're just buying these parts up from other places, and they're getting shipped to the unknown regions in wild space, I think that's going to tip people off. I think the idea is that we kind of got teased with the trailer is that they're taking over and they need a foothold, and that's why they've been so interested in Colossus Station. And we've all made the comparisons between the show and Deep Space Nine. It's kind of the frontier, and that brings me on a thought. Flix and Orca are just another version of Ferengi, almost.
Yeah.
From Deep Space Nine, they're all about getting the money and the acquisitions, and I don't know how much either of you watched Deep Space Nine in the past, but
P1.
Yeah, but the just this whole money-driven, here's our shop, what can we get for you? Here's the rules, type of a thing that they had going on.
Yep.
Well, I'll have to take your word for it, because I have 0 experience with Deep Space Nine, actually. So
it's a fun day.
Fair enough.
So.
Yeah. Well, and then as the episode ends, Kaz is contemplating what's going on. What was the First Order looking to? Was the First Order looking to mine more Delanite? Which is used to make weapons. This phase connector was explained to be something that you would use to do some deep mining on planetoids and things like that, and asteroids. So, it's a little odd, because we've seen Starkiller Base.
Yes.
And the obvious idea is that if you're going to be doing a lot of deep mining, that this phase connector would be useful and a tool that's going to carve away a huge chunk of a planet. But but we've seen Starkiller Base, and it doesn't look like they really need to do any more mining there. So I guess they still have a fleet to build or whatever. But did you all have any other theories considering what they might be doing?
Not really. I was just glad that they finally said, Kaz said, by the way, what is a phase connector? Because I was going to have to look it up. I'll be quite honest, because I thought, okay, I'm going to have to look this thing up so that I know what the heck this thing is when we talk about it on this episode. So yeah, I'm glad they cleared it up.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of glad it wasn't a MacGuffin, so to speak. And am I saying that right?
Yeah, and honestly, that's what I thought it was this entire time too.
But I was thinking that too, Dennis. I'm like, well, Starkiller Base, we've seen that. It's pretty much all. I mean, you got the big hole in the ground. Mm-hmm. Maybe this is like last connecting parts or something. Like maybe they're trying to tap into more crystals or something like that. I mean, I don't know. At this point, maybe they're almost at the finishing touches, and so they need this equipment to get it fully operational. Yeah.
Who knows? It still could be a MacGuffin at the end of the day. Simply because, when we had the episode where they explored Station Theta Black, when they sort of explored that, we're getting those breadcrumbs to the First Order doing something with Starkiller Base, and I kind of feel like this is another one of those crumbs in the line that lead back to how the First Order is going to launch their attack on the Republic with the destruction of Hosnian Prime. But okay, well, let's go around the table and give our final thoughts and a grade and put a wrap on this episode. Jay, go ahead.
Well, I kind of did feel like it was a very long road to try to get to the very end, which was, what is this phase connector? But it was a fun way to do it. I definitely liked this episode more than we got last week. Still waiting for that development, as we said before, waiting for that seriousness that's going to bring us more towards the culmination. So just have to be patient, I guess. Overall, I would give this one probably a B-. Definitely a lot higher than last week's episode that I gave a D to, which is not an R2-D2, just, but I did appreciate the kind of humor that we got this time was a lot more palatable, I guess you could say, and the characters and Flix and Orca were a lot more fun, and just all around just a fun episode. So B- for me.
Taxus?
All right, this episode was a whole lot of doing nothing for me up until the I guess finally you're getting a little bit of what's the First Order up to? Why do they need this part? You know what I mean? So there's a little, okay, finally we're getting a little foreboding, foreshadowing, a little connectivity, a little mystery building. So I'm going to give it a big C+.
Okay. I'm going to give it a B- as well. This episode had its charm. I kind of liked how it just straddled that line on humor. I like Kaz's character development throughout. Again, this is, I don't know who, I'm gonna have to go back and look who's written in the various episodes, but this one kind of felt like, we saw him become a mechanic at the beginning and take responsibility and take charge and kind of display some leadership traits. And then when, Taraj Key comes into the shop, he doesn't buy into the whole thing. He tries to, do what he's supposed to do, and then he goes and investigates. He kind of trusts his instincts, even though he slipped up and got trapped in the crate. And then he demonstrated some resourcefulness. So his hero qualities, I think, are kind of developing overall, and I like that. And I do like that we are getting closer and closer to the First Order springing their plan. So, it maybe didn't give us a definitive step or a definitive development for the overall plot, but it did kind of move the story along, and I liked it for that reason. It's good. It's not great, but I think a B- is about appropriate. So, okay, well, that'll do it for our discussion of Dangerous Business. Before we go, what do you guys have going on that the Scoundrels can look forward to this week?
Well, right here on Starship, Sabers, and Scoundrels is where you can find me. And you can always find my archived blogs over at Coffee with Kenobi and my Core Worlds Couture fashion reviews as well. So that's about it for me.
You can find me over on Geek Spring with Scott Murray, Regina Davis, and Jeff McGee. It's a little geek-themed game show style thing, and they're going to be only 1 minute. That drops next Tuesday, Geek Spring.
And as for me, you can find my comic reviews over on RetroZappers.com, and each month I'm talking Star Wars comics with Joe Bill J. Shepard on Jedi Journals. With the return of Discovery, my wife Beth and I have revived Warp Trails, and we are covering each new episode. And we had a great time talking about the season debut. So definitely check that out on the RetroZap podcast feed. If you want to find us on social media, we are at SQPod on Twitter and Instagram, and on Facebook at facebook.com/SQPod. You can email us at sqpod@retrozap.com. We'd love to get your thoughts on what's going on with Resistance. You can follow Darth Taxus on Twitter at Darth Taxus. Jay is at Joyce Krebs, and I am at DJKVER2. Speaking of RetroZap, we are a proud part of the RetroZap.com podcast network. The network currently features more than a dozen shows covering everything from retro gaming and movies to the Animaniacs, collecting, Dune, Game of Thrones, and of course, a whole lot of Star Wars. Subscribe to the network feed and you'll get them all in one place. So that'll do it for this Scoundrels Special Edition. We'll talk to you all soon with another edition of Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels. Until then, may the Force be with you.
That thing had 9 lives. She just spent them all.